Daniel chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar had been humiliated when Daniel interpreted his dream, and he had then worshipped God. But as the years passed, he lost the spirit which characterized true worship, and while in the mind acknowledging the God of the Jews, in heart he was pagan still. So he made an image of gold, patterning it as closely as possible after the image revealed to him in his dream, at the same time gratifying his own pride, for the entire figure was gold. There was no trace of the other kingdoms which were represented by the silver, the brass, the iron, and the clay in the dream. On the plain of Dura it stood, rising at least 100 feet above the surrounding country, and visible for miles in every direction. Then a decree was issued by Nebuchadnezzar calling to the capital the governors and rulers of provinces from all over the world. He, the ruler of kingdoms, thus showed his authority. It was a great occasion, and subject kings and governors dared not disobey the mandates of this universal king. Heaven was watching with intense interest, for this was the occasion when the highest worldly authority was to meet the government of heaven. Babylon was not only the greatest and most powerful government in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, but it is a symbol of earthly governments of all time, and for that reason we have the record as given in Daniel 3. As that great company gathered around the image on the broad plain, the voice of the herald was heard, "At what time ye hear the sound of all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image. Whoso falleth not down and worshippeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." The sound played, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego remained standing. They were noticed and were reported to the king, "There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. These men have not regarded thee." What a test of the fidelity of these three companions of Daniel. They realized that they were in the presence of not only the richest monarch of earth, and that disobedience meant death, but before the assembled multitudes of the plain of Dura, and that they were a spectacle to God, to angels, and to the inhabitants of other worlds. The king was angry. His proud spirit could not tolerate this refusal to obey his decree. He ordered that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual, and that the most mighty men of his army bind these 3 Hebrews and throw them into the fire. This was done, but God in this act began to vindicate his worthies. The furnace was so exceedingly hot that the mighty men who cast the Hebrews into the fire were themselves destroyed by the intense heat. God preserved his servants in the midst of the flames. Suddenly the king became pale with terror. He looked intently into the midst of the fiery furnace, and turned to those near him with the words, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" They answered, "True, O king." The king then said, "Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." With bitter remorse and feelings of humility, the king approached the furnace, and exclaimed, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, and come hither." They did so, and everyone there at the plain of Dura witnessed the fact that not even the smell of fire was upon their garments, and not a hair of their heads had been burnt. God had triumphed through the constancy of his faithful servants. What the Jewish nation as a nation had failed to do in proclaiming the truth to the nations of the world, God accomplished under the most trying circumstances, with only 3 men. The story of the miraculous deliverance was told to the ends of the earth.